Park. I am your host and the curator of You Are You Symposium. This time around, we are focusing on vitality and well-being. If you are new to the symposium, I welcome you and invite you into our community and into the experience of expanding, exploring, and experiencing your own vitality and well-being. We are offering a multitude of methods and invitations of ways for you to really become maybe curious and to find and choose your own truth in the ways that elevate your experience of vitality. And when I say vitality, I mean, what's it mean to you? What's vitality in the experience of who you are in your life at this time? And how might you then, with that attention and awareness on vitality, expand it in your own awareness and into the things that you love and the things that you serve and the things that you do in this life? That's what we're exploring all month, and today this is our first new aspect of the symposium where I've invited groups of my friends to join me in intimate and raw conversations about our own experiences of vitality. And I have a threefold intention, really, for this. One is that my friends and I, we love to have conversations like this. And so I would be doing this whether we were sharing it or not, because it's what we do. So there's that. My second intention is that I know that if we were having this conversation amongst ourselves and no one else heard it or watched it or even knew it was happening, that the ripples of that intention, of the dynamism of that conversation would still contribute to all of life. That if you were anywhere in the world, you might not know this conversation was happening, and yet you would be contributed to by it. It's kind of an aspect of what they call the butterfly effect, and whether we really agree that this is true or not doesn't really matter. The symbology of it is what matters here, and that the metaphor is that even if a butterfly flaps its wings, and if you can picture just how delicate a butterfly's wings are, and then in the flapping of their wings, that motion could perhaps even cause something as mighty as a tidal wave clear around the planet. And I would expand that to say could cause a movement of a star far off, far off, far off in the universe. That these kinds of conversations really are and do contribute to all of life. And it's why I invite you to join us. Now, the third part, and the one that most engages you, is to invite you to start to have these conversations, or to continue to have these conversations in your life, with your family, with your coworkers, with the people that matter to you and that you want to participate with in raising your own, what I call vitality quotient, or to whom you want to contribute as well. These conversations, as you'll notice, starting with today's and carrying on for the next 3 days, well, 4 altogether, are not anyone telling you what you need to do, but rather inviting our own stories and experiences and living and loving and growing through that. So with that, let me first introduce to you each of my 3 guests and friends who are joining me today, and then I'll tell you, if you're new here, how to find us on the symposium and how to join us in our community. And if you are and have been a member of the community already, I'm so thrilled you're here and really excited to share this new aspect of the symposium with you in our community circles. All right, so I'm going to go just straight across the line here, and it looks like it's also alphabetical order. I like that when things line up. So let me welcome first Christine Carlson, who is the founder and continuing voice of Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and an ever-expanding message that fits in that. So I'll stop speaking so they can all see you. You'll need to make some noise, Christine.
Hey, Tamara. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you today.
And next we have Peggy Arvidson, who is the Pragmatic Palmist. And I'm so thrilled to have her return to the symposium. You might have remembered her, or you might remember her if you were a member of the, it's a lot of ways to say member, isn't it? You might remember her if you were a member of the first symposium when we were exploring Know Thyself, and she was one of our guest speakers then. So welcome back, Peggy.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for including me.
Of course. And for your initiation back onto Google Hangouts.
Yeah. No, it's not as painful as I thought.
Yay! And our third guest today is Renee Baribeau, who is the practical shaman and so much more. And I'm thrilled to have you here and look forward to seeing you soon in person too, Renee. Welcome.
That's right. I look forward to seeing you. It's almost July, and looking forward to coming up to Whidbey to write for a month, and also to see my friends and go to the Hootenanny. So thanks for having me.
And thanks for saying Hootenanny.
It's my favorite thing.
So we are each in different parts of the U.S. for this session, and bring a variety of life experiences. And I'm going to stop talking as if we're talking to our guests here and really have this be as if we're in my living room or gathered around the fire pit, which is fantastic. You'll get to see it when you're up, Renee. Or maybe taking a stroll on one of the magical beaches up here.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I thought as I asked each of you to join me is that I thought we might have the conversation about probably about 4 different aspects of vitality. And I guess the best place to start is really what's this word mean to each of you, to each of us. And so I'd just like to toss that out there. What is vitality to you? How do you experience it? How do you live it in your own life?
Well, being...
Wow, who wants to go first?
I'm
so much, right?
group here. I'm happy to go. I was teaching last week up at the Shakti Fest, and somebody took these really magnificent pictures. It was just a natural shot that I ran over to make sure I got into the middle of. And people kept commenting, you just look like you're so in your joy. You're just so aligned. And I have this tool I call the Awakening Compass, and it's when you are absolutely present and living in that moment that all things flow out from there. And for me, that's what vitality is when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I know it, and the universe is conspiring to hold all of my dreams and aspirations up. Then I have the extra juice to do all of the things that I call life.
Yeah, I love that that phrase that you used of being aligned with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Doesn't do me any good to be aligned with you,
right,
or anyone else. I mean, so
yeah.
Getting. One time I saw in a vision that there's a center pole that goes all the way down through us that connects us to the earth and then connects us, like that, we're that donut, whatever they call it, the helix, that's exactly how we are. And when we're in that alignment with ourselves, everything else flows.
Yeah. And from that, you experience vitality.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. How about you, Peggy? It looked like you had something to say. Uh-oh. I can't hear you. No! Did you mute yourself? All right, let's try somebody else. Kris, can I?
Yeah, I can. I loved what Renee said about presence and being awake. That to me, when I feel most vitality in my life, it's when I feel the most presence, and I'm in conversation. I'm just engaged in what's happening right now, and feeling very passionate and very joyful. Those are the things that really help me to experience vitality. And also, I think that body piece, taking really good care of my health also makes me feel super vital, that I don't feel like any one of them is not, they all have to be in alignment on some level. That if I'm feeling a lack of vitality, oftentimes I look to my body for the answer to that. I look to the energy in my body, what's off in the way I'm living, in my habits and that kind of thing. So that's what being vital is to me, is being super present and awake and a very alive feeling to what's happening in life now, very engaged.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see it in you too. I just to look at you as you're speaking, like there's a subtlety in your energy, but you feel awake. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I just had a cup of coffee, so that could be it too.
Well, there is that. Maybe I made the mistake of having a cup of decaf.
Right. You'd be a lot more vital with that caffeination. For me, I just took a year off from doing boot camp, because about a year ago I felt like I was really going to hurt myself, and I took a year to really go in and make other changes. And all of a sudden, about a week ago or a month ago, I knew it was time to go back and get back into that kind of different kind of vital shape. And so when I went there this week, it was absolutely, as sore as I am today, it was absolutely perfect to be re-engaging that at a different level. And I knew that now I was doing it for me. Yeah. Absolutely for me, and that's a difference.
Yeah. I'm pausing a second to see if Peggy, she's been having some bandwidth issues. She got bumped off just before we started. So see how it would just be so much easier for you in my living room having this conversation.
We'll have to meet. I'll be up there for July, and I'm a really good cook, and
Yeah. And I have a great fire pit.
You do?
Yeah, you should see it. It's going to be great. So what do you say, Peggy? No. Gosh darn it. So I'm going to say a few ideas for you, Peggy. If you have an external mic, I know you have an external camera. You don't have an external mic. It's in the camera. That's just so strange.
Could you sign off and try re-signing in again?
That might be the thing. I wonder, Peggy, if you, what Renee just said, I don't know if you could hear her, if you exited and then came back in. There she went. Okay, so she may not have done that on purpose, but I'm going to go ahead and, when I've been hosting the conversations with our guest speakers, the questions I ask them, I'm the host, I'm asking the questions, so I don't usually answer them. So this one is such a different platform. I'm really happy to be a part of the conversation in a different way. And I'd say for me, the experience of vitality is that that amazing quote, and I just went blank on her name, the dancer and choreographer, where she talks about there's a spark in you, a spark that is unique to each person. For however long, I still can't think of her name, it'll come to me. However long I've known that quote, I've also known that I knew this knowing long before that. And it's that experience of there's something alive, like a flame, like a kindling that lives somewhere in my being, and it's not located in a spot in my body, it's just located in my awareness. And there are times when that spark feels as if it lights all of me up, like all of me and all of my surroundings. And when it's that vibrant, it's easy to say that's my vitality. That's how I know vitality. I feel alive and awake with all of life that life is. And when it's dim, I have to be subtler to be present for it, because it might not have me all, jacked up like I feel on caffeine. It might be that I need to be subtler and quieter, or a little, we talk about being unplugged from technology. Like I sometimes need to be unplugged in that way so that I can be really plugged into
Did you leave?
Yeah, we lost Tambra. I'm here, Renee.
I guess we'll have to continue. That's what my wind work is all about. When she's talking about, she's trying to get that flame going. Well, that flame, that before God, when wind was God, that is what that ignites that flame, is the wind. And so, it fans the flame for sure. So I guess the other day I went to the doctors, and the doctor said, "Oh, what religion are you?" I said, "Oh, I practice the wind." They looked at me. It was funny.
That's nice.
I know, my new religion is the wind.
The wind.
The wind. But it really is, and then you'll see. I think Tambra's coming back. It looks like she's there frozen. What about for you? Like when have you no vitality or vitality? How do you know the difference?
Well, I think I was relating to what Tambra said, that for me, it's vitality is a little bit quieter for me. It's a little more of a peaceful feeling. I get into there's a way in which if I just sort of drop into, I call it my zone of creativity, that where my mind it's free from a lot of the chatter, any kind of fear that I might have, any kind of insecurity that might keep me from that zone of creativity. But to me, that's like the most vital feeling. It's a very dropped in feeling. It's not like a feeling where I'm like really out of my body or super necessarily enthusiastic or exuberant. It's more of a quieter, more peaceful, kind of where just almost like you just feel sort of enveloped in the moment. You're just sort of nested in that creativity. And that's what feels really vital to me, because I just love that feeling of being so present, where even listening to somebody speak isn't that present because I'm kind of focused on what they're saying, you know what I mean? But when you're just in that zone of creativity and things are just sort of flowing in at you as a vehicle, that feels really vital to me when I feel very instrumented by the divine. That's the most vital feeling I think I could feel.
That's great. I was a chef before my first book was about cooking and how cooking saved my life. And
beautiful.
Yeah, I promised my mother I wouldn't publish my memoir until after she was gone, so she didn't, no one really liked the story so well. But that act of dropping in, like you're talking about, when you're slicing and dicing and cooking in the kitchen, it's absolutely the same thing that you're talking about, is that dropping into that vitality instead of taking that vitality and sending it out somewhere.
Yeah, and I like what you say about cooking, because it's not any different when you're painting or you're writing or anything creative. It seems like it really drops you into that that simple genius of vitality, creativity, that flow, and that feels incredibly vital.
Maybe that's why I cook, I paint, and I write. I'm just a creative. I'm just a creative soul. Whoops, where did Tambra go now? We lost her again.
Yeah, I do a lot of those things too. I'm not such a great cook, but I like to enjoy great cooking.
Oh, well, then you definitely should come up to Whitby. I just built myself this most beautiful kitchen where I could actually experience that flow for myself. A little baking area and a place to And I, love to have entertainment with a bar so people can really watch while I drop into my own vitality.
Nice. Nice. That's awesome. Tambra, are you back?
I'm back. I asked that lively question, and then poof, I was gone.
That's right. You just dropped into your vitality. That's what we were talking about, why you were gone.
Yeah. I was very happy to see you were both still there when I got back.
Yeah, me and Renee seem to be hooked. We're kind of hooked up here on Google Chat.
Yeah, right?
I'm very grateful.
And we have similar likes.
Flopping around. We don't know where she is.
She probably gave up on us and went to do something a little more vital for herself.
I'm sorry that she's not here to have this with us, because for many, many reasons. So so maybe she'll pop back in. We'll see.
I know. I was waiting to find out what a pragmatic palm reading was. I was excited about that.
In addition to her work, she's really an exceptional being, and then her exceptional being part plays into her work. Yeah, she's really, really wonderful person. When I reached out to Peggy and invited her to be a part of this, I'd called her and said, you know how I do things. Like if I get the inspiration that I need to call somebody and invite them to something, I just do it. I don't try to find my reason. I like to know my reason, but I don't have to know my reason. And I said, so I don't know why I'm asking you. I could make up stories. And then she said, oh, well, here's why, and told me some of her own life story about where her vitality, her physical experience of her vitality got very challenged with illness. And she was very much looking forward to being part of this conversation. So if she's not able to get back on today, maybe I can lure her on to one of the later sessions this week. Oh, she's...
I wonder what that is about the human spirit that we have to break down in order to become more vital oftentimes, I kind of, that's a really interesting, because I know in my own life, I think one of the most vital times that I ever had was grief, I always thought that was so ironic that I was experiencing such high vitality amidst grief.
Yeah, it's a body of work actually that I've personally studied, lived, and then also brought to clients for a long time, which is this idea of particular women. Like I don't know that all women get called to it, but particular women who follow a certain soul's journey that says, man, I'm just gonna face this experience that seems excruciating, but the experience itself is it's going to bring me home to my most authentic expression. And I think from the women I've known and from my own experience, it was usually brought on by something, and I don't know, this would be a great question for you, Kris, it was brought on for me and women I've worked with in this, that there was usually a realization in the hardship that something else had been happening that I wasn't paying attention to. There was a deep soul call that I was deafening out, that the event or the illness or the breakup or the injury or the whatever, event that started the avalanche or the cascade into whatever breakdown feeling was often what finally had us listen to the call. Was that something that you experienced? I haven't asked you about that.
Yeah, I think I put that together pretty quick, and how Richard died so suddenly that I realized that I wasn't living at that time in my life. I was really holding space for 2 teenage daughters, for him, for his work, and I definitely wasn't developing my own sense of purpose and meaning beyond my family and the roles I played in my family. Even though I had written Don't Sweat But the Small Stuff in Love with him, I never really did go back to writing until after he died, even though he encouraged me constantly to do so. It's almost as if Richard knew somehow that the girls and I we were so dependent on him, and so dependent that I guess you could call it almost codependence. It was keeping us from really living, bigger, like really stepping in. And I think I would sort of notice that I was supposed to, and he was always encouraging me to, and yet I wouldn't do it. And I just wouldn't step into a role as a leader alongside of him. And I'm not sure why I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I think I had a lot of self-doubt, and it was just easier for me to let him lead and just sort of stand back. And I would come out now and then and do some, do work. I did an awful lot of volunteer work and so forth, but definitely after he died, it was a huge initiation into me having a voice of my own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So Peggy, I'm over here just hopeful that the reboot's all you needed. Are you here?
Well, I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I don't want to interrupt it. Yay!
Yay! Wow. Yeah, for somebody who loves technology, I'm kind of a Luddite, so that's what happened. Sorry, I've kind of blanked out on where you are in your conversation, but I'm excited to be here again.
Well, we're getting your voice. I'm not getting all of your imagery. You're going back and forth. But I'm going to just trust that it's all good. I'm happy you're here. Where we are, I'd love to, what we didn't get to hear from you was how you experience or know vitality. I think that would be great to have you join us there.
Vitality, for me, everything for me is right now I'm feeling the word kinetic coming very clearly through me, that it's this energy that I feel from my fingertips to my inner being. So I know I'm I'm living in a vital way when I am present and hearing kind of the whispers, if you will, that are around me, the whispers like in the trees, in the clouds, in the grass. So yeah, that's what it is to me. That makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Yeah.
I don't know why you can't see me because my camera's on, but that means I could scratch or something. You can't see
I'm going to see if I can pull up a photograph of you so that at least it's not a black screen, and we'll see. At
least you can see my photo.
Yeah. I am going to pause for a second before I ask the next question because I realized that I didn't share the URL for our visitors who may be interested in joining us if you haven't yet joined us for the URU Symposium. It's URU. You see that second letter, that second word U is actually simply the letter U, which really stands for you are unique. You are unlike anyone who has ever been or will ever be throughout all time. You are universal, and you are us. And which is really fitting, if you ask me, about why we would want to have conversations about such things, because it's in the conversation that we can often come home to the unique knowing. Kind of like Renee was saying earlier, like, well, it wouldn't really make sense if I was aligned with being you, because that would make me somebody else. And yet we feel the reverberations of one another, and that can sometimes help us feel and sense and know ourselves individually as well. And you can join us at urusymposium.com/vitality. And we'd love to have you come. All right, stop screen sharing. There we go. So I thought that, sometimes when I talk to people about vitality or health or well-being, Often, and this I think is often true whenever we talk about something that is elevated, that all the yeah buts also come up. You know, but what about when you're sick, or what about when you're angry, or what about when you're injured, and what about if you're just like in a perpetual bad mood? Or what about, you know, if you're just in such emotional turmoil or pain? Like, how then do you come into experiences of vitality? And because I know that all four of us have had those too, and you've started to speak of this some, Christine, that I thought it would be really honest for us to also be talking about when that perception of vitality isn't the thing that we're experiencing. You know, when illness or injury or death or accidents or, you know, breakups or failures, like those things that have us go, God damn it, life is not on my side here. What is the hell's happening? Because we all have those times and those experiences. So I won't leave us here, but I really just want to be able to voice what that is, because I know that there's people in the symposium and around the planet are saying I'm sick, or I'm hurt, or, you know, my kid is dying, or I was in a car accident and I don't have any money, or like the whatevers, right? So I'm going to stop talking and just see where this takes us.
That's some heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's really heavy stuff. But, yeah, how do we, you know, for me, you know, being sick was definitely when I felt like what happened. I didn't know how sick I was for years. So it took, you know, 10 years to be probably diagnosed, and then to kind of wrap my head around it. So by the time I wrapped my head around what was going on and got myself starting to feel better, that's when I realized how much vitality was gone from me, because it happened, even though you'd think, you know, people always said to me, well, how did you not know how sick you were? But because I was always such like a plow horse, you know, I just go and go and go, that as things were going a little slower, it wasn't like overnight. It wasn't a car accident. It wasn't something where I could say, oh, well, this is what happened. And so, yeah, that was not a great place, you know. And then in that time period, you know, I had no money, and I got divorced, and I started all over again. And so, you know, what came first, the illness or that? But, you know, when my experience was that everything sort of felt like it was in a spiral down, but I didn't consciously think that, because I'm a fighter, gosh darn it, and, you know, I can pull myself up by my bootstraps. And so it wasn't until the hindsight, you know, till a lot of that is behind me, that I could say, wow, it's amazing to me that I even, like, you know, had a sense of humor, or thank goodness I had a sense of humor.
I think when we're physically low, it is really difficult to feel vital. And again, when I alluded to this, when you asked me what vitality was, you know, and I said that I look to my body, my experience is like Peggy's, that I haven't had a lot of health issues per se, but I've had, you know, the occasional hormonal imbalance, or the thyroid that went kind of haywire after my adrenals were pretty fatigued from grief. I think that realizing that I physically wasn't feeling very vital, I went into my doctor and I said, something's just not right. I don't know what it is. You know, I had put on a little bit of weight, which was unusual because I wasn't doing anything different. She took my thyroid. She said my thyroid was normal, and I said, it's not. My thyroid is not normal. I know it's not. So could you look back on my records for 5 years and see what my normal is? And she said, yeah. And she looked back and she goes, oh my gosh, you've just taught me something. She said, your thyroid is 50% slower for you than it has been in the last 5 years of your reading. And even though it was falling within the normal range, it was 50% slower for me. And so it wasn't normal for me. And because I was really tuned in, and I knew that, you know, after I thought about what was going on for me symptomatically with my energy and stuff, I knew that was the problem. And so I've course corrected, and then my vitality returns, you know. And I think, you know, it's always good, like, if we can look, you know, if we're feeling off, we look to our body, because our emotions and our mind and our body are so connected anyways. And sometimes the easier course is to course correct the body. At least that's what I found in my own, you know, experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One time I had a pinched nerve in my neck that lasted for about 3 years, and it was a really, if you've ever been in, for a lot of people who are really in serious pain all the time, and at the time I was really struggling and I didn't have health insurance, and so there was this big fear going around for me, like, I don't ever want this to, now I'm saying it live on camera, but I don't want this ever to be a pre-existing condition. And so, you know, I totally took care of it by all of these things, but I just remember, you know, until I could really deal with what was going on for me spiritually, it did not pass. And, you know, where I was out of alignment, what I didn't want to see. So I've used my body, and actually the body is at the center of my awakening compass, which is the tool I'm working with, is that will, to me, the body will tell you absolutely everything you need to know in order to course correct, as you just said, or to make these adjustments. But we're going so fast, as Peggy said, that we sometimes, for us who are really overachievers, we don't even really know, oh, well, I'm a little off today. Well, somebody else wouldn't be getting out of bed. So, you know, really learning to be in tune with how that regulates for yourself is everything. Like I said earlier about taking a year off from boot camp, and then being ready to go back to boot camp and realizing now it's a good thing, but it wasn't a year ago. And really knowing that this is one long life you're living, so you might as well, you know, enjoy the ride a little bit. And if 1 year you're not feeling so great, let it be.
Mm. Yeah, what I hear through, like as a through line, but through all of us, is that there's that, echoing back to what you said from the very beginning, Kris, of like, it's about being present. So being present to what's happening in my body, what's the experience here. Because vitality to me means like, while there's the liveliness or the life that is infused into these bodies, it requires our bodies. You know, like it is about living through our bodies. And these are such great feedback mechanisms, you know. When I was doing, when I was writing my first book, one of the instructions I received, or transmissions I received for it, had to do with this paradigm, I guess is a great way to say it, that there were really 4 pillars, that if we are aligned with those 4 pillars, then the ideas of what has us perceive suffering completely disappear. Doesn't mean we don't experience pain, but we're no longer in that perpetuating suffering. And if we're not perpetuating suffering, we really can create lived experiences of heaven on earth. And actually, it's not that we can, we are. And one of those pillars, there were 4 pillars, to be in the channel of divinity, to know ourselves as divine, to have our experience and expression of divine, to know and experience ourselves in the channel of vitality, to know and experience ourselves in the channel of soul desire, which is so unique and exquisitely expressed through each person. And then the 4th channel is love, that creation essence of all that is. And when I really started diving into each of them and I spent time with just vitality, I started looking at the ways that we habituate, sometimes through, you know, what might be called group mind or cultural bias or environmental influence or being manipulated by the media. Like, we could call it lots of things, but there's that way that we can be numbed to our own experience of true vitality because we're experiencing the illusions of it, you know, the false sparks of it, you know, like gossiping and creating drama and keeping fights going when really the fight needed to be done already. Or and you know, I know each of you, and I know that, like, this isn't the norm, but there are ways in which those behaviors are so ingrained in our cultures. But I also think that that thing you were talking about, Peggy, and I know this one of, like, you know, I can work long, I can work hard, I can work much harder than is often required, and that kind of can even be super stubborn about it. And then there's the letting those illusions of vitality fall away so we can get present for this is vitality. Like, without all that, like, what am I trying not to feel that is so richly me and richly informative and expressive and creates more love and passion and joy and contribution. And you know, I've had my own experiences, certainly, of some of illness, more of injury. But more than anything, I think the thing that's been my perpetual keep me from my true vitality has been self-doubt, or believing that I was fundamentally unlovable.
Yeah, I can relate to that one about self-doubt and fear keeping me from feeling vital. I think that self-doubt and fear, when you're engaged in them, you're just really in your ego and you're not really in your true essence. The true essence of who you are, the true self, is in the shadow of those things, you know, in the shadow of fear and self-doubt. Definitely, I know that I can't get in my creative flow when I'm in those places. I feel frustrated, and that's really, for me, it's just about, you know, I always like say, I just need to bring my attention back to the moment and to being more present. That if I'm in those places, then I'm really, that's really a sucky place. That is so not a vital place. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I think to close, because I know we got a tricky, weird little techno start here, but I want to honor our time, and I do think that it would be beautiful to have us each share something about how we do what you just said, Kris, of bring ourselves back. You know, like when we notice, like, wait a minute, I'm a little somewhere off here. What's a way, what's a practice, a prayer, a movement, a decision that, like, I don't know, it's going to be different for each of us, but what's something you do when you notice that vitality is dimmed or you're off track from it, that you bring yourself back into a more vital experience?
For me, it's always earth. It's always earth. That's where I go. I go outside. You know, and I first of all, I want to thank everybody, particularly Renee and Christine. You guys, I was getting sick way before I started my spiritual sort of awakening journey work, and I think maybe that was, you know, this was a long time in coming, and so you all just really gave me that great understanding that even though I may have had some of these tools when I was in the throes of it, it had begun so much earlier. And I had been blaming myself, like, why couldn't I get myself out of that? So thank you for that. To the final question, when I am not feeling vital, immediately I go outside, whether I'm in the city or I'm at a conference or I, you know, have been driving. I'll stop the car and get out and just put my feet on the ground. And you know, I used to think it was so weird, all these earth-hugging, tree-loving people, but it's the quickest way I know to return to my vitality. There's so much happening there in a small 1-inch parcel of land that that's all I need. And I know that sounds really Pollyanna, but I can do a whole lot of other things and pray and write and all that, yoga. I love all those things, but Earth is quick and easy, and it doesn't cost anybody anything. You don't have to spend any extra time or money to go to Earth.
Well said. Well said.
Go to Earth. For me, I just want to say that, Peggy, to me, in my spiritual journey, I believe that everything is your spiritual journey. The sickness, the health, the people dying and the people not dying, and, you know, being on the earth, you know, all of it. We just sometimes don't know that we're having a spiritual journey. I always said that there's two kinds of people: those who know it and those who don't. But we're all here. That's what we're doing in these bodies. And this, for me, I have two things that I do, and one's going to sound a little bit more not very shaman-like. When I'm having one of those times where I need to recharge, I do a Netflix marathon where I actually get in bed and usually binge watch a whole series, and somehow just absolutely getting out of that frame of reference that I was in and giving myself a whole day where I'm not expected to get out of bed except for to get what's out of the refrigerator to nourish myself while I'm doing this works. But something that people could do really, really quickly that I'd offer you is that everyone, I think, should have a black stone, a black rock in their car, so that when something happens, you take that stone and hold it in your hand, and you say, anything that's not mine is returned to the stone immediately. Because a lot of times our vitality these days gets zapped by something we read on Facebook or some other driver, or what I'm really watching now is the distracted driver. You know, you have to watch way more carefully because everyone's, you know, texting while they're driving. So a rock really helps. Better to text onto your rock, tell the rock you to take back what you don't need, and it really, really works like a charm. It's the same thing as Earth, but you can carry it around with you. And I want to thank both of you. It's been very interesting to have this whole conversation. Oh, and Tombra for hosting us here.
Absolutely.
Great to have you, Renee. I'm so happy you're here.
Well, I love so much this conversation, and just what you've all shared is just so powerful and so inspiring. And for me, I'm kind of along the lines of where Renee is. I really just, if I feel a lack of vitality, even when I was raising my children, and especially in those years, I remember just telling my kids that Sunday was going to be at least, you know, half the day, you know, 3/4 of the day. I called it a lifeline Sunday, where we just all did our own thing, and sometimes I would close my bedroom door and I would just read or watch movies or just hang out by myself, have that quiet, because what I've noticed is that while I'm fairly extroverted, I actually replenish and rejuvenate it in my heart and soul in a very introverted way, just like not long periods of introversion, but I to just, you know, have quiet. And that if I'm feeling a lack of vitality, it usually just means I'm moving too fast and too hard and doing too much. And this is the way. I really haven't been sick in years. I haven't had any colds, flus, knock on wood, nothing, because I literally just shut down when I start to feel that way. When I'm tired, I just like, whoa, I need to pull back and rest. And I think that being in tune to what your body feels like is really valuable. That's like our most valuable gauge, is to really know your body and understand, you know, what are your limits on any given day, and to really use vitality as that gauge, you know, that once you're able to do that, you'll find that you'll just live that much healthier and that much brighter, because you'll just be flexible. You know, you won't be like, oh, I have to power through this workout today. It'll be more like, wow, I just don't have the energy for that. Maybe my body is fighting something and I need to rest. So the other thing I would say is that being grateful and really focusing on what's right in your life is probably the surest, easiest way to get back to vitality. It definitely has helped me through all the struggles and the suffering that I've been through, is to really focus on all the great things that are happening in my life and not focus on the, you know, the small stuff that isn't working out, or even the big stuff that's not working out. It doesn't do me any good when I get caught up in those kinds of thoughts about life when it doesn't seem to be going my way. I really just sort of notice that, let it be what it is, and then naturally, more buoyantly, I notice that I'm more grateful once I just allow that to pass. And so that's what I would say is gratitude, and then listening to your body and just getting more rest if you need it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to echo rest. You know, I think we all talked about some way that things are very speeded up, and I hear, you know, I live in this very quiet place, and so when people tell me like their lives are so full, and my life is full, but it's not so driven, that I forget what it's like to live where there's so much traffic or congestion or so much feeling like I'm hurrying to wait, that I think happens in our very busy lives. And like I forget that. I'm disconnected from it in our culture because I'm not living it in my island life. And rest, man, even as quiet as it can be here, there's times when I just need to remember to rest, or feel that trigger that says like, oh, just closing my eyes for a moment reminds me that I'm a little bit tired, you know? Like it can be that simple. I love the range of who the three of us are. I'm really happy that, I mean, the four of us are, looking at the three of you. And I am, you know, I would love to have had the technology not be quite so herky-jerky today, but hey, we got through it. I'm really grateful for you each being here, really. Now I'm looking at you the way I said not to. And for bringing your hearts and for meeting each other. One of my great joys in life is to create connections for people who don't yet have an awareness of one another, and now you each do, and we'll follow up on that some more too. And for all our guests here, we also have connections to our guest speakers as well, or my guests here as well. So you'll find out how to stay connected with them and receive some gifts from them if you would like at the youareyousymposium.com/vitality. When you sign up there, we'll give you all sorts of goodness, and we'll share links on this page wherever you're watching this for them to for you to be able to connect with them as well. If we were all in my living room, I'd offer to pour another glass of wine, or to take a walk out into the grass. We could kick our shoes off and walk in the dewy grass. And then Peggy would be so happy.
Yes, I will.
I'm sitting here barefoot, so I'm ready to go. So,
yeah. So as a way to close, I simply want to express my profound gratitude. I love that technology makes this possible, that we can be in all these different places and still be able to have this kind of a conversation, to see each other's faces and hear and feel each other's hearts. And I trust that our having this also contributes to all of life, like to our lives and to all of life. And so for that, I'm very grateful. And to all our guests who are new to the symposium, we welcome you. And to all our guests who have been with us throughout the time, thrilled to have you be a part of this bigger mission of experiencing, exploring, and expanding vitality and well-being for all humankind and beyond. So with that, I thank you, each of you. Bless you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tambra. Thanks, Renee.
Thanks, Tambra.
Peggy.
And Peggy and Kristen.
And for that, I'll sign off. Blessings to all. Mwah. Until next time, be well.
Bye.